Hello, everyone. Welcome to the to Design with Native Plants and Succulents webinar today. We're still assembling, so I'm gonna pull out the poll question. So while we're waiting for more people to join in, you can answer those questions. I'm gonna wait for 2 more minutes for more people to join in, but for those who just joined us, please fill out the poll questions. All right. It seems like everyone already fill out the poll question, so I'm just gonna end the poll now and share the result. So the first question is asking, what level gardener are you? So we have 67% are intermediate. So I have gardened before and looking to learn more. And we have 22% who is advanced. I eat, sleep, breathe gardening, which is great. And then we have uh, um, 11% that is beginner, that are beginner. So they're looking to learn everything gardening related. The second question is asking what percentage of your garden or landscape is native plants or succulents. So most of us have like 25 to 50% um, of native plants and succulent. And then the second highest is 75 to 100% native plants or succulents. That's great. And then the third question asking, why did you sign up for today's class? So most people want to learn more about native plants, and um, some people is joining are joining for fun. Okay, and I'm just gonna stop sharing the results, and gonna start my presentation. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Claire Wong from the city of Sunnyvale, and I'll be moderating tonight's program along with our co-sponsor, Basca, and our instructor, Juanita Salisbury. I want to welcome all of you to our class. Before we begin the program, I'm going to provide some guidelines for successful participation in the webinar. First, all attendees are muted by default to reduce the background noise to the presentation. For tonight's class, you can put your questions in the Q&A and I'll read it out during the end of the presentation. We ask that you save any question that you might have for the end of the presentation. If you have any burning question, feel free to use the raise hand button and I'll unmute you, um, and you can ask your question live. So if you would like to ask a question, you can do so in two ways. The first option is to use the raise hand feature. I will then call upon you and unmute you. The second option is to type your question in the Q&A, and I will then read questions to Juanita or respond it directly in the chat. This illustration shows where you can find the raise hand button and the Q&A button. I'd also like to note that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on Basca's website. Now that we have that out of the way, I would like to share a little background on Basca's landscape education program. Basca is a special district that represents the interests of 26 cities, water districts, and private water companies, all of which purchase wholesale water from the San Francisco Regional Water Supply. Basca member agencies collectively serve over 1.8 million residents and 40,000 businesses in San Mateo, Santa Clara, and Alameda counties. Basca's goal is to ensure a reliable supply of high quality water at a fair price for our agencies and their customers. Consistent with the goal, Basca provides a regional water conservation program to support our agencies in improving the water use efficiency. The landscape educational program was one of the elements of that conservation program. So the program objective is to because outdoor water use represents the single largest untapped opportunity for water conservation in the Basca surface area. So, outdoor water use reduction through the use of water efficiency plans and innovative techniques can help conserve water and ensure that the future water supply needs of our communities are met. A few highlights on additional conservation programs that may be of interest to you. Valley Water has several rain barrel rebates options. You can get up to $35 for installing a rain barrel, 50 cents a gallon for installing a cistern, and $1 per square foot of a rain garden. Basca has a newly redesigned landscape rebate program, which provides rebates to customers of participating water agencies for replacing water intensive lawn space with water efficient landscaping. Basca also has the I Heart Great Water program, which gives residents up to $200 in rebates for connecting a washing machine to a gray water irrigation system. Next, there's the Basca Long Be Gone rebate, which gives residents various rebates for transforming their lawns and making them more water efficient. Another program by Bosca is the Smart Controller program, which provides instant rebates and heavily discounted pricing on purchase of the Retro 3 irrigation controller. This controller can be operated on your smartphone and normally retails for $280. Through this program, customers of participating water agencies can purchase a controller for $100 plus tax. For more information or to find out which of these programs are available in your area, visit bayareaconservation.org. The City of Sunnyvale encourages you to participate in rebate programs offered by Valley Water. Valley Water offers $2 per square foot of rebates for replacing your lawns and plants that require a lot of water with drought-tolerant plants or permeable hardscape. California native landscapes and water-wise landscapes need 1 to 3 years of water to establish, and then they may not need any water except during the hottest summers or driest winters. This is a good project to start now while we hope that the next winter is wet. Also, with the same application, you can apply for efficient irrigation equipment, including inline drip irrigation, smart irrigation controllers, and ring sensors so your system only turns on when your plants need it to. We also offer up to $200 in rebates for properties that connect a clothes washer to a gray water irrigation system. In order to qualify for these rebates, please make sure you apply first. A common mistake is that residents get too excited about the rebates and start transforming their lawn before making sure that they qualify. Also, are you looking for compost? Free compost and mulch are available for Sunnyfair residents at the Smart Station. Stop by Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And also, we just added a new location for compost pickup for Sunnyvale, Mountain View, and Cupertino residents. Go to Charles Street Garden, 433 Charles Street, and follow the signs in the parking lot to the pile. You can pick up this certified organic compost 7 days a week. Just bring your own shovel and container. Additional information on water-wise gardening can be found on southbaygreen.gardens.org, where they also have some landscape designs and templates as well. It is a great way to get some ideas before you go ahead and apply for those rebates. Here is a snapshot of the Waterwise Gardening website. It provides resources to support residents in water efficient landscape renovations and management. Resources include a gallery of gardens with plants identified, plant selection tool, and even a watering calculator. If you enjoyed tonight's program, we invite you to check out our upcoming webinar classes. You can view the full schedule and register at bayareaconservation.org. If you're interested in staying up to date with Sunnyvale's Environmental Services Department, make sure to subscribe or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or subscribe our newsletter. Feel free to scan the QR codes or search using the green text provided. We share tips and tricks for living sustainably in Sunnyvale, as well as rebate information and upcoming events. If you have any question about the rebate programs, please contact Valley Water for more information. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our instructor, Juanita Salisbury. After growing up in the rural Willamette Valley in Oregon, Juanita studied psychology in college, eventually receiving a PhD in biopsychology from University of Florida. Later, she obtained a Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture from West Virginia University. In 2009, she established Juanita Salisbury Landscape Architecture after working for commercial and residential design firms. In 2016, she established the Primrose Way Pollinator Garden, the first of the 8 California native plant habitats in Palo Alto. Her focus is to research and educate about these habitats, as well as exploring opportunities to install more of them. In 2020, she joined the Friends of Palo Alto Parks as the director and continues her efforts to enhance and preserve local parks and natural areas. Recently, she has become the secretary of the organization. Thank you, Juanita. Um, I'm gonna stop sharing here and please take it away.
Thank you, Claire. All right, let me share my screen here. Slideshow for beginning. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. Um, so we're going to talk about designing with native plants and succulents. I am a California licensed landscape architect, and the work that we do here in Palo Alto. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, you can go to the Primrose Way Pollinator Garden. There's also a few videos on my YouTube channel, Primrose Way. If you don't like social media and you prefer to look to find more information about what we do, you can go to our website, primrosewaypollinatorgarden.com. So we do have the 7 gardens plus the 8th garden, which is a corridor project here in Palo Alto. The gardens are open all the time, so you can go anytime. Makes a nice little walking tour to experience. If you come into Palo Alto along Embarcadero Road, the first garden is the Primrose Way Garden, the Gwynda Street Garden. If you go up Newell, there's the Island Drive Garden, the Arcadia Place Garden, Hopkins, Gwynda, and then our 2 newest gardens, West Greenwich and the Churchill Pollinator Garden. They're great all year round, especially in the springtime when everything is blooming. But really, they're open anytime, so feel free. So the overview tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about design and planning. So kind of like the theory of everything. And then I'm going to talk about a simple strategy so that we can maximize our success, give you a few examples of plants. We'll talk about those succulents, and then we'll wrap it up by talking about best practices. And the photographs that you see are all done by me of the various creatures that I see in our gardens. So what we usually think design is, when we say garden design, we're often taught to think about it like we're painting a picture, arranging colors, balancing forms, contrasting textures. And the primary focus is on the visual appeal. How does it look? And that creates a static, pleasing image. But a living system needs a different approach. If you design for a truly harmonious, functional landscape first, and then when your system is healthy, what happens is that the aesthetics take care of themselves. So I always like to think about this approach as flipping design on its head. Instead of thinking about how it's going to look first, think first about how it functions. And when it functions well, it will be beautiful. So let's talk about the core ideas here. So aesthetics versus function. Again, instead of asking, how does it look, we must consider what does it do? We are shifting our goal from a static picture to a living, dynamic system. And our core thesis is that aesthetic beauty is not the goal. What happens when you have a well-functioning, healthy ecosystem is the beauty is an emergent property of that. So even if you think you're not the best designer or artist, that doesn't matter. If you design something that is highly functional, the beauty will come. And so the function is life. True beauty is the resilience of a garden and the activity of a living system, the sound of bees, a flash of a hummingbird, that the functional design supports. And the result just doesn't look good. It's going to be alive. And, here we have a beautiful little junco uh, proclaiming he loves my home garden. Lots of creatures that we see um, that just create that dynamic beauty. Quick case study here in Palo Alto at the Gwynda Street Pollinator Garden transformation. Before, you could see this patch was nothing but ivy, um, some shrubs and an oak tree in the back. And I put up my sign here with showing people what we were planning on doing. And a few years later, this was the transformation. Big jump from here to there, but it really is a step-by-step process. And if you focus on one step at a time and don't try to do everything at once, it's very manageable. And each of those steps leads to a resilient garden. So, getting started, get rid of your lawn. An easy way to do that, this is from stopwaste.org, just to give you an instant blank canvas, is sheet mulch your yard. You can basically, instead of trying to dig up the grass or spraying chemicals, you know, don't do that. Instead, put down cardboard that smothers the grass, putting mulch and compost on the top gives you that nice clean palette with which to work, and you can plant right through the cardboard. Um, Super easy. So that's how you sweep it clean. And then when you go to plan quantities of things, what I like to do to show people is just kind of a generic how you might lay out plants. So you want to measure your space, how big is it? And I use graph paper using like one of the squares equals a single foot. So measure your space. If you say you have a 12 foot by 12 foot square, which is what this example is, um, first, consider your goals for your garden transformation. What are you trying to do? You know, I can't tell you that. You have to decide that on your own. But if you also want to, at that point, also create pathways, patios, those kind of like hardscape areas, the structure and access that you need to get in there, enjoy it, do the maintenance, all that kind of thing. And then the sequence for planting is place your trees on the plan first. So from your plant palette, trees go in first, then your shrubs, and then your perennials. So like a 3-2-1, shrubs, trees, shrubs, and then perennials. So biggest, medium, small. Um, and what you want to do on your plan is show those plants as circles at their mature diameter. That helps you with your initial spacing to get your initial plants in first. And when I say plants in first, what you want to do is you want to get in those shrubs that will jumpstart your garden, and then over the years just keep adding things as the garden continues to mature, because once you have the backbone shrubs in there, the other plants will do much better in a community of other plants. And, I'm not going to tell you exactly what to plant, give you a plant list, but I'm going to give you a strategy for decision making because every garden is different. And so it's better to use a simple strategy to help guide your decisions than telling you exactly what to plant, even though I will give you some specific plants that we use that work very well in Santa Clara County. So the strategy, though, can work anywhere, um, not just Santa Clara County, but all over California and beyond. And that strategy is to hack the Keystone and Pioneer partnership. What we mean by that, so we want to plant keystone species, the backbone of a mature ecosystem. They provide essential resources and support a wide range of wildlife. Include pioneer species. Those are the trailblazers, rapidly colonizing disturbed areas and creating conditions for other plants to thrive. Those two types of plants and those roles work together. The pioneer species and the keystones, the pioneers prepare the stage, and the keystone species ensure the long-term stability and biodiversity. And that balanced approach that you take by incorporating both types of plants in those roles into your garden leads to a more resilient and sustainable ecosystem. So you might be asking yourself, what's a keystone species? We'll take each type of role here. And so how to tell? One easy way to know is to consider the function of those plants. And here we have a nice animation. Energy from the sun is used by plants, that's eaten by insects, and that energy then ends up in little birds, little baby birds. And this is actually a picture from my own backyard. This last spring, we had a beautiful family of nuthatches, and they were happily fed. But basically, plants are the primary producers of food and the basis of food webs. And if you consider that 37% of animal species on the planet, that's over a third, are plant-eating insects. And as a rule, native insects only eat the native plants that they evolved with. So insects are picky eaters. And among other characteristics, then, the plants that feed multiple species are more likely to be keystone species. So that's one way to tell. Another way to tell, if we want to be more specific, is we can go to um, the National Wildlife Federation, their lists of keystone native plants. And this is from their website, just a screenshot of Mediterranean, California, Ecoregion 11. And here they just basically show you the different types of plant genera that form the top keystone um, uh, genera for you. And they break it down for us into trees, shrubs, and herbaceous perennials, and the different insects that eat them. Some feed hundreds and hundreds of species of insects, so keystones. And then they break it down also in terms of the things that uh, the bees like. Some bees are pollen specialists, which means that they can only feed their babies certain types of pollen for them to thrive. So that's a nice resource, kind of like cuts out all of the red tape and gets you right to where you need to go, and it breaks it down really easily. So National Wildlife Federation website, really, really handy. My other go-to site for plant information is the California Native Plant Society, their CalScape website. This is a free database. Anybody can use it, and you can search by location. And here in Santa Clara County, this is just a screenshot. Um, it turned up 840 results. So that's a lot to choose from. And they break it down by plant type, water use, special uses, what it attracts. You know, it's a fun website to check out. Nursery availability. So if you want to know where to get the plants, it tells you where you can get them. Um, they also have like design and inspiration. So, they actually have some like model gardens that you can use, how to care for your garden. And if you just want to outsource it, you can also find landscape professionals who can install these for you. So a lot of resources here on this website. What are some of the benefits of planting keystone species? Um, because keystone species have a disproportionate impact on the overall health and diversity of an ecosystem compared to their abundance, their effect in the environment is amplified. So by planting them first, you jumpstart the development of a thriving habitat. So they get things started. They're very well adapted to their local environment, and planting them first allows them to establish quickly, which creates a foundation and fosters conditions suitable for other native species to thrive. They form connections between all kinds of things in the environment, and that creates a ripple of effective connections. They provide a framework, so a structure, and niches that benefit a variety of other plant and animal species. And it's a time saver. By planting those high impact species first, you maximize that benefit sooner. And so basically, as soon as you plant it, you have the benefit. So instant gratification when you plant a keystone species. They're economical. You can achieve those maximal ecological benefit with limited resources and minimal effort and scalability. Um, the concept can be applied to gardens of all different sizes. So lots of benefits. One example, and I like to talk about planting trees. Remember, trees go first. And so you want to start with trees. If you don't do anything else this winter, plant some trees. And nothing compares to oak trees. Here in the Santa Clara Valley, the valley oak, this is at the Hopkins Avenue Pollinator Garden. They used to be about 61% of the tree cover in the Santa Clara Valley. Now they're about 1%, unfortunately. But as a keystone species, they provide critical support to the entire ecosystem. They are deciduous, which means they drop all their leaves each year. You just leave them, the leaves in place underneath the tree to support the actual health of the tree. They have a taproot that goes down into the water table, and then that basically pumps that water up and spreads it out to those lateral surface roots to share water with other plants. And then you want to plant native plants around it, like monardella or coyote mint, that will support the health of the tree as well. Valley oaks are insect factories, transforming that sunlight into protein to feed those baby birds and other species. And they do grow quite quickly and they can live hundreds of years and they add value to real estate. So if you have space for a valley oak, hands down, that's one of my favorite trees to plant if you have space. But if you don't have space, um, you can say, well, what trees can I fit into my yard if there's already existing trees or not much space? And these are examples of things that I have planted in my own yard. As you can see, I'm a little bit of a tree hoarder, and we have a small yard, but I managed to fit everything in. So Acer macrophyllum, the big leaf maple, um, it's deciduous, has these big shady leaves on them, really pretty. Cercocarpus betuloides, the mountain mahogany. This is a very narrow tree, so if you don't have much space, um, it's semi-deciduous, so it doesn't lose all of its leaves all at once. I even have a willow um, growing in my yard. I have elderberry, the cherry Prunus salicifolia, the box elder, Acer negundo, our street tree that we have, the Modesto ash, hazelnuts, because who doesn't like hazelnuts? Um, we have another cherry, Prunus virginiana here, Arctostaphylos, our native manzanita, which can grow in different forms. They can grow into tree forms. Our native redbud, which you can see I've got behind a cage here to keep the squirrels from digging it up. Um, and then lastly, our native toyon, which grows into a kind of a small tree. Um, and everything that has an asterisk by it is super, super low water use. In fact, I don't even water the toyon at all. So for water savings, you cannot go wrong with the heteromelies arbutifolia, otherwise known as the toyon. Um, Now, if you plant a few trees and you want to stick in a few shrubs, what I use over and over and over again in our gardens because they work and they use very little water and they're super low maintenance. Shrubs like Arctostaphylos, again, the manzanitas, lots of different kinds. The ceanothus species, um, they they call them blue uh, blue flower or blue like California lilac. I like the scientific names. It's just easier to keep track of what they really are. Eriogonums, Baccharis. Um, so different shrubby things grow extremely well. And then, of course, some of the trees that can go into. And these are all keystone species. But you can just like start with literally just one of these things and then go from there. Prunus salicifolia, the native hollyleaf cherry. Look at those white foamy blooms on that. This is an incredible tree. It is evergreen, which means it keeps its leaves all year long. and they're shiny and glossy, so it doesn't look all dried up during the dry season. It's a beautiful small tree. Other things, if you want to get rid of your lawn, but you still like that swath of green, you can, again, a ceanothus, and these are the specific examples, but you can choose what you like. Um, Ceanothus horizontalis, Yankee Point, again, evergreen, about 15 inches tall and spreading, blue blooms, grows in sun and shade, a great alternative for a lawn. Um, Another one that we like to use is Ceanothus maritima, valley violet, super low water use, blooms in January, larval host for dozens of butterfly and moth species. Again, the Arctostaphylos, the manzanitas. This is Arctostaphylos densiflora, Howard McMinn. Beautiful evergreen shrub. Blooms in January. Provides support for 78 caterpillar species and 13 pollen specialist bee species. They also provide berries, nectar, and shelter for many other organisms. So you can see why they are a keystone. Lots of different manzanitas to choose from. This is one of my favorites, so super easy to grow. Another one, this is our native gooseberry, the Ribes malvaceum. There are several different types of ribes that you can plant. This is one that we have over at the Hopkins Garden. This is Christie Ridge, and this is blooming in December, and it blooms for a couple of months like this. And it is a hummingbird magnet, and it's a bumblebee magnet, host to confirmed 3 different species and likely 76 species of moths and butterflies. Beautiful, beautiful shrub. Um, so aside from keystones, we also have those pioneer plant species, nature's trailblazers. And those key functions of trailblazers is they provide soil stabilization and erosion control, nutrient enrichment like nitrogen fixation by the legumes. They attract pollinators and beneficial insects. They provide that early stage food and habitat for wildlife. They create favorable microclimates like shade and wind protection for other plants to come in. And the benefits for your garden is that they jumpstart that ecosystem development. They improve that soil health and fertility. They reduce weed pressure. They attract wildlife and increase biodiversity, and they facilitate the establishment of keystone species. This is at the Primrose Garden along Embarcadero Road, and we don't actually water this strip between the sidewalk and the street, but we have everything from Lacey phacelia growing here to poppies to globe these blue flowers. Really puts on a show in April. So pioneer species, poppies are California state flower. They are first to colonize disturbed or barren areas. They're hardy and can thrive in harsh conditions such as poor soil and limited water. They possess the characteristics of drought tolerance. They are adapted to the dry Mediterranean climate. They quickly establish themselves in open areas, and they are prolific in seed production. They will go everywhere, and they really are just gorgeous. This is one of my favorite varieties. This is the coastal variety here. That's yellow with the orange star in the center. But by colonizing those disturbed areas, California poppies help stabilize the soil, they prevent erosion, and they create conditions that are most suitable for other plants to grow. And they play an important role in ecological succession, which is the gradual change in species composition over time in a community. The garden that you start with is not necessarily the garden that you're going to have the year after or the year after. Plants like to move around to where they like to be. More pioneer plant species examples, lupins, for example. These vibrant flowering plants with their tall spikes and colorful blooms are well known for their ability to thrive in disturbed areas and improve nitrogen, or they improve soil by fixing nitrogen. I'll talk about that in a minute. Coyote brush, this I use again and again and again. Um, it's a common sight in our coastal scrub and chaparral communities, highly adaptable, and can colonize areas quickly after disturbances like fires or landslides. This is a variety that I use, Baccharis pilaris Twin Peaks. It stays really low. Um, the Baccharis actually comes in like different forms. Some are higher mounding and some are even more upright, larger shrubs. And then one of my other favorites to use, the buckwheats or Eriogonum species. They're super diverse plants ranging from low growing ground covers to tall shrubs. They're often found in arid and rocky landscapes, and they're excellent at stabilizing soil and providing food and shelter for pollinators. This is Eriogonum latifolium. This is our coastal buckwheat, and it's an insect factory, and it is just super easy to grow. And we have it in our corridor project in places that do not get irrigated at all. So huge water savings right there. But nitrogen, why is it important to have nitrogen fixing plants? Um, Nitrogen is a star. So fixing nitrogen is a process where certain plants and bacteria capture nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form that enriches the soil. And this essential nutrient then becomes available to other plants in the ecosystem, promoting overall biodiversity and ecological health. And nitrogen just doesn't help plants grow, it's the crucial component of chlorophyll, the green pigment that allows plants to capture sunlight and turn it into energy. So without nitrogen, the magic of photosynthesis would not be possible. So nitrogen is a star in our transformation of starlight into protein. Let's talk about water, because we're all about water. Plants and animals store water in their living tissues and move it through the environment. Water is the solvent for all of life's life processes. And how can you find out how much water plants use? Super easy to use website here. The Water Use Classification of Landscape Species is an online searchable database for plant factors of individual plant species and is published by the University of California Cooperative Extension and the California Department of Water Resources. Basically, it's a ranking of plants. So they rank it as they use a lawn as a standard. So a lawn is 100%, and then plants are ranked based on that. So if something is very low water use, the plant factor is 0 to zero point 0.1, which is 0 to 10% of what a lawn would normally use. So you can go to that website, search for different plants, and they will tell you, whether it's very low, low, medium, or high, and then or a special landscape area, which is like a swimming pool, which is considered a 1. So super easy to find out how much water plants are using. So I'm going to get nerdy and talk about hacking things. Um, and I may have taken the analogy a little far here. So we're gonna talk about the succulents because this is the real meat of the presentation here. So without getting too nerdy, okay, maybe a little too nerdy, your water storage hardware, your succulents and geophytes, are basically endurance versus avoidance. What does that mean? If we consider the true water-wise plants are the ones that have evolved sophisticated strategies to solve the problem of drought. So plants have figured it out how to use and save water. So succulents, like our native dudleas and sedums, are living water tanks, storing water in their hardware or their tissues. They have a program for drought tolerance or drought endurance. They stay awake, they photosynthesize, and they actively manage their water supply as a water hoarder. They store water in their tissues, they hoard it. Whereas geophytes, these aren't succulents, but these are plants that store carbohydrates and sugar, that pantry, or fix carbon dioxide from the atmosphere underground, which helps them survive during the drought. Like the alliums, the calochortus, the diclostema, they have that software that runs when water is present, but then they sleep underground when it's dry. I like to call it dormancy.exe. So that's their program. The software is designed to escape drought, avoid drought by shutting down completely during the dry season. So they disappear completely. The bulbs and the geophytes are underground. Well, they don't all disappear completely, but they store all the goodies that they need so that they have that startup capital to reboot the system when water is present. So a couple of different strategies: endurance, so the succulents, or avoidance, something that shuts down um, and stores um, carbohydrates and everything to jumpstart the system um, when water is available. There's a third strategy, which are what annual plants have, which is opportunism. They wait for the water before they sprout and do things. So consider that plants have figured out how to manage our dry summers and wet winters. So they have these different strategies, which I think is super cool. All right, so but what are succulents? So from Wikipedia, the word succulent comes from the Latin word succus, meaning juice or sap, and a simple and broad definition are the plants that store the water, making them resistant to drought. They hoard it. So we have some beautiful pictures of various um, succulents here. In my own garden, they actually come right up through the leaf litter here, the dudleas, the coastal dudleas, Dudley virens here, but lots of different types of succulents. And so most Dudleas and other succulents, they shed their leaves and flowers during the dry season. They drop all those water losing parts to endure the dry season. So um, this is in my own home garden. We have Dudleya virens hassii in March versus September. So this is a finger form to the leaf, kind of fat and juicy when the water is there, and then kind of like shrinks down a little bit during the dry season. And then Dudleya bretonii has those flat leaves in a rosette form. Okay, so very much like a rose. And then during the dry season, um, it starts to shed extra leaves and then pulls the water in into the center of the plant. So they have a strategy. Pretty cool. And in California, if you look at the Calscape website, there's 188 succulents native to California, tons to choose from. I happen to like Dudleya's because they're super easy to grow. Um, and now if we talk about geophytes, okay, we're talking about the bulbs, the rhizomes, the corms, things like irises. And these are all plants from our gardens. And when I said that when you have a functional garden, the aesthetics take care of themselves, I mean, look at the colors here. My goodness, right? So these are just a few of California's beautiful geophytes. And we have the Fritillaria affinis here, a nice bulb, Diclostema idemea, Calochortus tolmii, the Brodea californica. Our native irises, super easy to grow from seed. Our native alliums, Allium unifolium. Lilies, so Lilium Humboldtii, look at those tiger lilies there. And the Calochortus, this is Calochortus argilosus. I mean, you know, proof of concept right there. The aesthetics take care of themselves. So let's talk about hacking water. Um, our goal with water is to have those anti-fragile roots. The goal is not to water forever. The goal is to make the system resilient to not being watered. And so the first year, um, you're going to establish your plants and plant during the winter and early spring when we're getting rain. That's like about 98% of the battle in terms of establishing a native plant garden. Um, Water deeply and infrequently, once every 1 to 2 weeks, to force roots to search for water. Do not coddle these plants. Make them work for the water. They will find it. That's what they do. By year two, the break, you drastically want to cut back on watering. That's the tough love that makes the system resistant and resilient to not being watered. And I mean, one of the reasons I love Dudleyas, they're so easy to grow. These are Dudleyas growing on a rock face cliff. This is a vertical surface. They're growing in some moss here. I mean, there's hardly any soil. You really I mean, it just blows my mind how well adapted these succulents are to grow on a vertical rock. And so when I say don't coddle the plants, you actually don't have to. Amazing plants. So some of the other hacks, propagation. You want to use abundance as a hack for resilience. And I'll tell you why it's important to have abundance in your garden. For succulents, you can do cuttings from some of them. Offsets or rosettes is a quick way to generate more plants, although without the genetic diversity that seed-grown plants provide. So while some succulents can be started from leaf cuttings, only some of the dudlias can be, not all of them. But dudlias are super easy from seed. I'll show you in a moment. Another propagation method is to cut off all the rosettes and pot them up separately, leaving the old stem in place, and the new plant will emerge, and then those can be cut off and potted up. And so, like a sedum, for example, you have these long stems here that you can cut the plant, let it dry for a couple of days, and then pot it up, and you'll get more. So super easy to propagate um, succulents. But for real fun, um, and to really get that superabundance seeds, and you're building abundance for free. And so resilience comes from abundance. And propagation is how you can affordably pack those niches. Once you have your backbone shrubs in, propagate everything, grow a bunch of stuff from seed, and then keep tucking things into those niches. And so here in this tray, these are Dudleya seeds, and the seeds are, this is Dudleya farinosa, the coastal Dudleya, and the seeds are like almost as small as the little pieces of dust. They're very hard to see. I had a bag full a friend gave me who has a property on the coast and said, here. And so I was like, okay. Um, I basically just threw the seeds into a flat like this and put the flat in the rain. And this is the secret to getting these to sprout. They love the rain. And um, there's hundreds and hundreds of seedlings here. I mean, there's one, there's one. I mean, this picture was taken mid-harvest because I had literally thousands of these things and I was giving them away by the hundreds. In this pot here we have, um, these are Lilium Humboldtii that a friend gifted me some of these seeds. And there's a couple dozen in here, and that's not even all of them. I have like probably about 500 of these things. But again, you can pack the niches very affordably. I mean, 2 dozen lily plants, at a nursery, you're paying like $20 each. So a couple of dozen plants, you're saving a lot of money. And if you have 1,000 Dudleyas here, if you think you're spending $10 for a Dudleya in a store and you have 1,000 of them, that's like, you can do the math. So abundance. It's a resilience hack. A garden with abundance has functional redundancy. It's an ecological insurance policy. So when a shock like a drought or pests hit one shrub or species, the pollinators and other insects or organisms are supported by the abundance of backup species. So abundance creates redundancy, and redundancy is resilience. And so here's you know, this particular garden, this is a neighbor's house down the street where she has a lot of different annuals growing here. This is a second year of these growing. They reseeded themselves. Again, the aesthetics, I didn't design it. I just threw the seeds out there, and this is how it turned out. So I don't necessarily worry about how things are going to look as long as they function well, because the beauty will emerge. And then let's talk about best practices, because in this living system, you have you have to consider everything that lives within this environment. One of the great things about a native garden is that native gardens are less maintenance than a non-native garden with a lawn. No mowing, you don't have to fertilize, and very little watering. So basically, your work is keeping the weeds down, You want to, irrigate to establish the plants and cut way back. Encourage the roots to search for that water, and they will. Roots are really, really good at that. Prune sparingly to control dry, dead material for fire safety. Again, don't fertilize. Mulch to control the weeds initially, but then just leave your leaves in place. Leave areas of bare dirt for nests. 70% of our native bee species nest underground, so you want those to go into the dirt there. Don't use leaf blowers in planted areas because so many insects will overwinter in leaf litter. It's like their preferred spot. And don't use pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides. And so, plants aren't decorations. They are alive and they are food. And so, because they're food, means that your native plants will attract many native pollinators, insects, birds, and other organisms. And as I said before, among other things, keystone plants provide food for many more species than do other plants. So when I go to the nursery, I look for plants that have holes in the leaves because I know I'm probably going to bring home some butterfly larvae. So it's a twofer. What are those implications? Because your native plants will attract a variety of native pollinators and other insects, using the best practices will help them to complete their life cycles. They can emerge from their pupa, go out and mate, lay some eggs, and the whole thing starts all over again. So those best practices will help them complete their life cycles. Um, you know, as I said, um, you know, many larvae overwinter inside stems or leaf litter. So, and they spend a lot of time, sometimes years, as larvae or eggs. And the adult lifespan of these insects, once they stop being caterpillars and larvae, some of them live only long enough to reproduce, a matter of days sometimes, or just a matter of a few short weeks. So consider the entire life cycle. And when you do, um, your garden becomes alive. And, native gardens are dynamic. And your relationship between the plants themselves, the organisms that use the plants, their caretakers, the overall structure changes over time. And so the beauty of designing for the function is that it just doesn't stop with this texture versus that texture or this color versus that color, but the dynamic evolution over time. So it's like more beauty just keeps coming. So it's not a static picture, but it's one that keeps giving you more. And what we know when we allow things to complete their life cycles is that you're providing those opportunities for the organisms to live their best lives. Like over here at the Hopkins Garden, we have two Ackman blue butterflies in a mating dance. So again, something beautiful emerges. And so some final thoughts. When our designs leverage nature's powerful and functional lessons for ecological roles and strategies, we create an abundance of life, and from that abundance emerges the harmonious beauty. So even if you don't consider yourself a designer, maybe you're not an artist, the beauty will emerge if you just follow nature's lessons. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Juanita. This presentation is very informative, not just practical, but very inspiring. Like there's some background noise, but functionality creates beauty. That's very inspiring um, things. And I feel confident in designing because if making things functional, then the aestheticness will come along.
Yes. Well, it creates life, and life is beautiful. And so, that's why many clients will always ask me, how is it going to look? And I tell them, it will exceed your expectations because not only will it look good, but it will be alive. And um, the beauty is in the delight that you see how things come over time. It's the butterflies, it's the birds, it's the fragrance, it's all these things that keep coming. They just keep emerging. And it brings, it's just native gardening is a joy. So you don't have to be an artist to make beauty because beauty will emerge from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay. Feel free to ask any question. Um, you can type in the chat, the Q&A, or you can raise your hand. And I've seen some comments from Tammy. I'm just gonna read some of them. So she was saying that she has lemon uh, tree at her house, and then she also saw some orange flowers, purple flower when walking um, around Santa Clara County. That's nice. And yeah, some other comments. A lot of green, small little leaf. But any question to Juanita, feel free to raise your hands. Okay, we got one question from Audrey. When I moved into the house, oh, when I moved into the house I live in, it came with some very well-established roses. I water them very rarely, perhaps 2 or 3 times over the whole summer. But is there anything I can do to maintain them while still keeping the watering load of my garden low?
Yes, roses are actually um, they're, I mean, we do have wild roses here in California. And roses actually, even though they're not native, they do pretty well here. Um, you know, Basically one of the things that I like to do with non-native roses um, is keep them pruned because roses really like it here. So they can actually exhaust themselves with growing a lot. So one of the things to help maintain them is to prune them heavily in the wintertime.
Cool. Okay, nice. Any other questions? Okay, a question from Vicky. Sheet mulching is fine, but what about those pesky oxalis and crabgrass that seem to be impervious to efforts to remove them? Don't
Yes,
you love them?
I know these plants, and they're the bane of my existence. Well, you just you have to keep on those particular plants, and um, you, as a mighty human, will win the war. But the problem is that many of our yards are surrounded by non-native um, zones, and there's always a battle of like those non-native weeds getting into our gardens through the wind or the birds dropping seeds or whatever. Um, so, you know, you just keep pulling them up, get them before they can set seeds as in like for oxalis, which is like every time I see them, I attack them. Um, and I don't let them go to seed because if you let them go to seed, they're going to spew hundreds of seeds out. So get them before they go to seed. For crabgrass, you just got to keep on it. Eventually, you will win. I mean, in our gardens, like I showed the picture of the Gwynda Street garden, which was ivy. And that particular garden had been ivy for decades. Like there's one of the people who lives adjacent to that garden lived there as a child, and he's almost 80. And as a child, he said it was ivy. So that's it's like decades. We removed it, and ivy is like really hard to remove. But once it's out, and you just continue to like pull up any like stragglers, it's pretty wimpy. So if you go after the weeds, you know, constantly, you will win the war. Um, because weeds are always trying to move in. So the thing to do is to just fight back and keep on them. Um, you know, in our gardens, in our like the eight that we have, the corridor project, and then the seven island type gardens, I do have a lot of volunteers that help me, and I've trained them to understand that when they see the oxalis, just go nuts, yank it out, and sometimes I'll have like three or four people digging at crabgrass because you can win the war, and we have in certain places. It helps to have a concerted effort. So, if you have a bad crabgrass problem, it might be good to bring in, some cousins, the kids, you know, brothers and sisters, and just go after it, go for the roots, and then really bring the level of crabgrass down. That's what we do. We really attack them, and then it's mostly mopping up afterwards.
Nice, thank you. Be persistent, and you will eventually win. Okay, question from Dennis. Our landscape has three large mature oaks, not deciduous. These were heavily mulched with about 6 inch of large bark pieces about 10 years ago. There's a lot of leaf litter, which piles up very deep on top of the bark. Will these eventually decompose? And should I keep the base of plants like manzanitas clear of leaves?
So that's a great question. Leave the leaves. Leaves are like so good for the trees. And, you know, if it bothers you the way that it looks, you can always put like a skim coat, what I like to call a skim coat of bark chips on top of the leaves. And that way you end up with you can like sort of smush them down with that. And I like to think about it as like the leaves are a pasta layer in the lasagna and bark chips are the meat. And so you can continually create that um, um, lasagna layers in there, and they will definitely decompose. And not only that, but they will provide the most amazing habitat for bumblebee queens, which are looking for places this time of year to get their nesting started. Um, so yes, they will eventually decompose. Um, and uh, the base plants, so I don't worry too much about leaves on top of plants um, because the leaves do eventually decompose. They drop down inside of the plants. I mean, sometimes if things are really covered up, I'll just brush the leaves off, but I try not to interfere too much. It might be because I'm kind of lazy and I have like seven big, gigantic gardens to take care of. And I figure that nature will help me out there. Um, and so I'll brush things off, but I basically leave things where they are because that is prime real estate for insects and things that will actually eat the leaves. So, you can brush off your plants, but don't stress about it too much. What I would tell people when they have a native plant garden is just like, let it go wild, you know? And when in our corridor project, some of the plants are like really buried deep in leaves. I brush them off so I can like see them. But I always think, if you guys want to live, it's on you. Show me if you want to grow. And it seems to be working. The plants are not dead. Um, and they don't get smothered because leaves do break down. So, um, it's just like I give everybody permission. Leave your leaves, you brush things off and call it good and, come back in 3 months. So, yes, less work, less is more.
Thank you. Becky says thank you. Thank you for the questions. And she has another question. Can you speak to planting underneath oak trees? I think I heard that one of the reasons they became so diseased was because people overwatered underneath them, making them prone to pests.
So, once an oak is established, you don't have to water it at all. And planting underneath oak trees, yes. So some of the plants that we have underneath our oak trees, like at the Gwynedd Street Garden, we have a plant called Stachys albens, which is a low-growing perennial that spreads by runners. Um, and it's underneath a really old grandma oak. I like to call her grandma because she's really old and fat and big and beautiful. And she does quite well. At the edge of her drip line, we have the native toyon. So these are plants that grow in the wild next to each other and they like each other. So basically, I'm just recreating what like if I go up to the Foothills Nature Preserve, which is a large nature preserve here in Palo Alto, where I can see what's just growing wild and what things are next to each other because plants are they're community creatures. They like to form associations with each other. Um, and so I'll just copy what I see happening naturally. Some of the other plants I like to put underneath oak trees are coffee berries. Um, they grow extremely well um, and will basically, with the lateral root structure, the surface roots that oaks have, will get the goodies that the oaks pull up from the deep soil moisture. So basically, you can like stop watering completely underneath an oak tree once it's established, and they will do just fine. So, yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to have um, like an oak next to a lawn that's getting watered. You don't want a lawn at all. Um, and there's also more information if you go to the Calscape website where they talk about like how to leverage some like more shallow areas where water can collect, where the roots will grow to, so that it's not right like at the trunk of a tree, but kind of away from that. So lots of different ways to um, to make them more resilient and not fragile so that they can continue to grow and thrive.
Nice. Thank you. And then another question from Adriana. What thrives underneath or near black walnut trees? I've planted many things over the years near my tree, but nothing seems to thrive.
Well, walnuts have a chemical in them that they don't like things to grow around them. Um, and so I haven't actually planted black walnuts in any of our gardens because I do know that they have chemicals in their leaves and things like that that try to keep other plants from getting in their space. Some plants don't play well with others. I would try a variety of things. If you can find a place where black walnuts are actually growing out in the wild and take a look to see what might be doing well under those. Something maybe like some of our native grasses might actually work under there. Um, you know, I would just try a variety of different things to see what might work. But that's a great question. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on that. We haven't actually planted any black walnuts. I'm very intrigued by them because I do love nut trees in general because I like plants that provide human food as well as food for other things because I'm also part of that food web.
Thank you. Adriana says, thank you. Thank you for the great question. And any other questions? I like the idea of like learning from the nature, like observing like the trees in the wild and how their relationship with the with other plants, other wildlife, and then we learn that from them and implement them those methods into our own garden or landscape.
Yes, and again, my approach here, and it's taken me a long time to get to the point where people feel intimidated by garden design, especially when they're using native plants because they're so afraid of how it's going to look. And, um, you know, if you realize that, how it looks isn't the important thing because the beauty comes after the function. Um, and I personally find that very freeing because then it's like, then I don't have to like go, okay, well, then, we have to do this next to that to make this look that way or that way. And, um, the clients then see, the abundance of life and everything that happens when you plant a native ecosystem, and just really how easy it is. And, in California, we have something like 8,000 different species of plants to use. And you saw the Santa Clara County Cowscape list over 800 different things that we could possibly try, and one of the reasons why I have these public gardens is because our yard is so small and was like completely filled up. I was like looking for more space to garden. And be careful what you wish for, Claire, because sometimes you get 7 gardens and a quarter-mile long quarter project to keep you busy and plant as much as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, but those are good for habitat or for our ecosystem. That's nice. Any questions? Thank you, Juanita, so much for the nice presentation. It's really informative and inspiring. We do have one um, raise hand. Oh, I just saw a raise hand, but it's low. Oh, thank
Ah,
Jesse says
thank
thank
you.
you.
That's so nice.
Yeah, thank you everyone for attending tonight, and thank you, Juanita.
It's
Uh,
my pleasure, Claire. Happy to, uh, you know, if people are interested in visiting the gardens, they can message me through social media or through our website. I'm always happy to talk about the gardens. Um, Always looking for volunteers.
yeah, if you guys want to volunteer and like help with those seven seven media like the gardens to help them thrive, you can follow Juanita's social media or visit her website, email her, and join the email list, volunteer email list, and you will see the abundance of life in her gardens. Adriana says, "Oh, my mom and I would like to get the information to volunteer." Yes, could you like share the slide that you had in the beginning so they can email you for volunteering?
Yeah. Let me see. That. Okay. So that. All right. If we go back to the beginning.
And we can go through all the beautiful
I
pictures
know,
again.
right?
Yeah.
It wasn't, if you didn't see it the first time,
Mhm.
we go back all the way to the beginning. I do have a website, which is primrosewaypollinatorgarden.com. And that has a contact form. If you fill it out, that goes to my email. And, um, basically, I add you to the email list and you join. I send out, usually we do volunteer things just about every single weekend. And I will send out, um, stop sharing that. I'll send out an email blast to anybody, who's interested. Never any pressure, it's just like, just come have fun. And yeah, always grateful for anybody who would like to join us. It's really a lot of fun. Um, my volunteer.
Sorry, it froze a little bit and then the
Oh,
audio went off. So could you repeat it again?
yes. So I just said that I couldn't do I couldn't really do what I do without my volunteers. So I'm always grateful to everything that they do and all the time, their free time to come out and help. And they are trained so nicely that, I don't have to show them how to do things. They just know how to do it. So it's not just me who like can like tell people like this works this way or this works that way. Um, the other volunteers shepherd you and to provide you with their knowledge base as well. So we have like a huge community of people who know what they're doing, and we're a fun group to hang out. So yeah, so absolutely go to the website, Primrose Way, pollinators shoot me an email through the contact form, and I will add you to the volunteer list.
Nice. And Tammy says she want I like to volunteer too. So
Nice.
here we go. We have more volunteers to help our nature space thrive. Nice. I will also send a follow-up email with the information that Juanita mentioned, like the resources, the link that she mentioned today, and also her contact information as well as her the Primrose Way pollinator garden website. So if anyone else interested in volunteering, you can go to the website or like click on the website, the link on in my follow-up email and join the email list to volunteer and help to make our life, our nature more abundant. Nice. If there's no other question, then I'll be ending tonight's presentation. But thank you everyone for joining tonight. Thank you, Juanita, for giving such a great presentation and the great philosophy of the principle of design. Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and end this. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Bye bye. Have a good night.